As I was saying the other day, when I was a kid, I was 6 years old, I went to the movie theater with my brother, my older brother. And my mother gave me, I think it was a quarter to spend, you know, on snacks in the intermission. You used to have 2 films in an intermission. Now they're cheap, you just get 1. So I remember being out there and making looking at the little counter, and looking through the glass at all the different candy bars. And there was one that looked biggest. I figured that was probably the biggest investment, the most bang for my buck, actually for my 10 cents. So I explained to my brother what I wanted, gave him my 10 cents, and I got the candy bar. I thought, this is it, it's going to last me the whole movie. And I opened the thing up, and out slid a little piece of candy about this big. I thought, hey, wait a minute, I've been hosed, what happened, you know? And it was a big cardboard tray, and the actual candy bar was only about this big. And it was one of my first realizations that, you know, not all that glitters is gold. Or not that what you're presented or what you're promised is necessarily what you get. I was naive, I was innocent. I thought, well, that's what you're promised, that's what you're going to get. But the fact of the matter is, we don't get what's promised. So, as an example, I was flying to Puerto Rico from New York City for our temple services. And in the airport in New York, there's big signs, you know, going nuts in this tiny, you know, in this big city, noise, traffic, hectic, you know, need some peace and quiet, go to the Caribbean. And they have a picture of, you know, that aquamarine water and a beautiful white beach with the footprints, and it just looks idyllic. Let me go then, you know, palm trees swaying, no noise. Oh, what a relief. So that's when you're in New York. You get on the plane, you fly American Airlines or whatever it is, you land in Puerto Rico, and in the airport in Puerto Rico, I swear, there's a big poster, at least when I was there, and it said, going nuts on this tiny island, nothing to do, bored stiff, go where the bright lights are, go where the action is, go to New York. So New York is promising happiness in Puerto Rico, Puerto Rico is promising happiness in New York. And I remember thinking, well, wait a minute, you know, I just did that route. I'm not happier than I was before. Where was it? Was it over Atlanta, 30,000 feet? Did I miss it when I was going through? So once again, what's promised isn't, here's the problem. The problem is conditional versus constitutional. If your happiness is based on conditions, like the Buddhists saying, nothing is permanent, nothing is certain but change. So this, Krishna says in the Gita that this world is constantly mutable. It's always a series of changes. And if you were happy, I used to surf, believe it or not. And you want to talk about an ephemeral event. Because to have the right experience, best experience, you've got to have the right tide, you've got to have the right swell, right size. It's got to be coming from the right direction. You've got to have the right beach. You can't be too crowded. It's got to be the right tide. High tide, low tide, depends on the break. So many, there can't be a wind. If there's a wind, it's got to be offshore, but not too strong. So the mantra you hear if you surf, it's the famous line, and people say it with all sincerity, should have been here an hour ago. You know, when you show up, oh man, you should have been here, it's blown out now, should have been here an hour ago. So if your happiness depends on conditions, then you can be sure and certain those conditions are going to shift, and therefore what's going to happen to your happiness. So an intelligent person tries to find that happiness of real substance that isn't depending on the condition. Just like this body. Just for fun, you can do a test. Find a kid, your average kid on the street, any kid will do. If they look 8, ask them how old they are. Say, no, 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 I'll guess. And whatever their age is, guess older. If they're 8, say 10. If they're 10, say 12. And you'll watch. As soon as you say older, their chest will swell up. And they feel, you know, yes, you know. You ask somebody 18, hey, I thought you were 20. They feel very cool. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, you take somebody who's 70 or 80. How old do you think I am? You know, the guy's teeth are falling out, gray hair, he's, you know, whatever. Whatever his condition, say he's younger. If he's 70, say he's 65. If he looks 65, say he's 60. And you, same reaction. They feel great. Their chest feels full, you know, they feel like a new lease on life. So the question is, at a certain age, everybody wants, up to a certain point, everybody wants to get older. At another point, they all want to get younger. Now, I've done a field study several times, and I have found that after about 25, they always want to get older, older. You ask a kid, how old are you? He'll say 7.5. 7 3/4. I mean, in other words, they're just dying to go forward. And I've found it's about 24, 25, then they don't want to get any older. And I've found when they're about maybe 30, whatever, they don't want to get any younger. So right around 25 to 30 is when people are, you got 5 years at best. That assumes all the other conditions are in line, that you're happy. Which means if you live 80 years, whatever the percentage is, there's only 5 years that you're really satisfied with your bodily condition. So if your happiness is based on conditions, guess what? I'm from Southern California. As they say, you are cruising for a bruising.